You've been told that life is punishing you, that the delays, the setbacks, the moments when everything seems to fall apart are signs that you're doing something wrong, that the universe is against you, that manifestation doesn't work for people like you. But what if I told you that what you've been calling punishment is actually the most sophisticated training program in existence? What if those very experiences that feel like roadblocks are quantum field adjustments, preparing your nervous system, your energy signature, and your consciousness to handle the reality you've been asking for? See, here's what nobody talks about in the manifestation community. They sell you this idea that once you align your thoughts and feelings, everything should flow effortlessly. They paint this picture of immediate results, instant gratification, and smooth sailing toward your dreams. But that's not how quantum manifestation actually works. That's the Disney version of universal law, and it's keeping you trapped in a cycle of frustration and self-doubt. The real truth is far more elegant and far more empowering. Every single experience you're having right now, especially the challenging ones, is quantum training. Your consciousness, your energy field, your very being is being calibrated to match the frequency of what you've asked for. And if what you've asked for is millions, if you've asked for financial freedom, if you've asked for a completely different level of reality, then your training is going to be proportional to that request. Think about this for a moment. When someone trains to become an Olympic athlete, do they start by competing in the Olympics? Of course not. They undergo years of progressively challenging training that pushes their physical, mental, and emotional limits. They develop the strength, endurance, focus, and resilience required to perform at that level. The training isn't punishment. It's preparation. It's calibration. It's the universe's way of saying, I hear what you're asking for and I'm going to make sure you're ready to receive it. But here's where quantum mechanics makes this even more fascinating. In the quantum field, everything exists simultaneously. The version of you with millions already exists. The version of you living in complete financial freedom is already real in the quantum realm. But between current you and that version of you, there's what quantum physicists call a coherence gap. Your current nervous system, your current beliefs, your current energy signature isn't coherent with that reality yet. The training you're experiencing is closing that coherence gap. Let me explain this through the lens of quantum coherence. When particles are coherent, they vibrate in harmony. They're synchronized. They can create effects that seem impossible from a classical physics perspective. But when particles are incoherent, when they're vibrating at different frequencies, they cancel each other out. They create interference patterns. They block the very effects they could create together. Your consciousness works the same way. Every thought, every emotion, every belief, every cellular memory is like a quantum particle. When they're all coherent, when they're all vibrating in harmony with your desired reality, manifestation happens effortlessly. But when part of you wants millions while another part believes you don't deserve it, when part of you craves freedom while another part fears responsibility, you create interference patterns in your own energy field. So the universe, in its infinite intelligence, creates experiences that bring these incoherent parts to the surface. It creates situations that reveal where you're not aligned, where you're not ready, where you need more training, not to punish you, but to help you achieve coherence, to help you become the version of yourself that can effortlessly maintain the reality you've asked for. I want you to think about the wealthiest people you know or have studied, not the ones who inherited money, but the ones who created it from nothing. Almost universally, they'll tell you stories of massive failures, devastating setbacks, moments when everything seemed lost. They'll describe periods of their lives that felt like punishment, like the universe was testing them beyond their limits. But here's what they understood that most people don't. They recognize these experiences as training, not punishment. Warren Buffett talks about his early failures in business, how he lost money on investments that seemed sure things. But each failure taught him something crucial about markets, about human psychology, about risk assessment. The failures weren't stopping him from becoming wealthy. They were training him to handle wealth responsibly when it came. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he founded. Most people would have seen this as the ultimate punishment, the ultimate failure. But that experience taught him lessons about leadership, about innovation, about resilience that he never could have learned otherwise. When he returned to Apple, he wasn't just the same person trying again. He was a quantum-trained version of himself, calibrated to handle not just success, but massive, world-changing success. This is quantum training in action. The field responds to your requests, not just by delivering what you want, but by ensuring you're prepared to receive it, maintain it, and use it in alignment with your highest good and the highest good of all. Because here's something else they don't tell you about wealth and manifestation. Money is energy. Massive amounts of money represent massive amounts of energy flowing through your life. If your nervous system isn't trained to handle that energy, if your consciousness isn't prepared for that level of responsibility, if your energy field isn't coherent enough to maintain that frequency, what happens? The money comes and goes. You've seen this happen to lottery winners, to people who inherit wealth, to celebrities who make millions quickly. Without the proper training, without the quantum calibration, they can't maintain coherence with that level of abundance. Their nervous system goes into overwhelm. Their old beliefs create sabotage patterns. Their energy field snaps back to its previous frequency like a rubber band. But when you understand that your current challenges are training, everything changes. That business that didn't work out, it was teaching you about market dynamics, about customer psychology, about financial management. That relationship that ended, it was showing you patterns of giving your power away, helping you develop stronger boundaries, training you to value yourself at the level required for the life you want. That health challenge, it was forcing you to prioritize self-care, to develop resilience, to understand the connection between your emotional state and your physical reality. Every single experience has been quantum training, preparing you to handle not just the money you want, but the responsibility that comes with it, the decisions you'll need to make, the person you'll need to become. And here's the beautiful part. Once you recognize this, once you shift from victim consciousness to training consciousness, the training accelerates. The universe recognizes that you're a willing participant in your own evolution, and it can give you more advanced lessons, more sophisticated experiences, more powerful calibrations. So how do you know what you're being trained for? Look at the patterns in your challenges. If you keep encountering situations that test your self-worth, you're being trained to value yourself at a higher level. If you keep facing scenarios that require you to trust your intuition over external opinions, you're being trained for leadership. If you keep experiencing moments where you have to choose between short-term comfort and long-term vision, you're being trained for the kind of decision-making that wealth requires. The quantum field is incredibly intelligent. It doesn't give you random experiences. Every challenge, every setback, every moment of frustration is precisely calibrated to develop the exact qualities, skills, and energy signature you need for your requested reality. It's like having the most sophisticated personal trainer in existence, one that can see not just your current fitness level, but the exact fitness level required for your goals, and design a training program that bridges that gap perfectly. But here's where most people get stuck. They resist the training. They fight against the experiences that are trying to develop them. They see challenges as evidence that manifestation doesn't work, rather than evidence that it's working perfectly. They want the result without the preparation, the destination without the journey, the quantum leap without the quantum training. This resistance creates what I call training loops. The universe presents a lesson. You resist it, so it has to present the same lesson again, usually in a more intense form. You resist again, so it comes back even stronger. These loops can last for years, decades even, with people wondering why they keep attracting the same types of problems, the same kinds of relationships, the same financial struggles. But the moment you recognize the training, the moment you lean into it instead of resisting it, everything accelerates. You start extracting the lessons quickly. You start developing the required qualities rapidly. You start calibrating to your desired frequency at quantum speed, because now you're working with the field instead of against it. Let me give you a practical example of how this works. Say you've been asking for financial freedom, for the ability to make millions, but you keep encountering situations where people don't pay you what you're worth, where clients negotiate down your prices, where you feel guilty asking for money. Most people would see this as evidence that they're not meant to be wealthy, that money is hard to come by, that they're being punished for wanting more. But from a quantum training perspective, these experiences are developing your money consciousness. They're teaching you to value your worth, to hold strong boundaries around compensation, to feel comfortable with large numbers, to separate your identity from other people's opinions about money. Each situation where you successfully maintain your worth, where you don't discount your value, where you ask for what you deserve, is strengthening your ability to handle larger and larger amounts. The person who can confidently ask for and receive $1,000 without guilt or apology is being trained to ask for and receive $10,000. The person who can hold boundaries around $10,000 is being prepared for $100,000. The person who can maintain their worth at 100,000 is being calibrated for millions. It's progressive training, quantum style. And here's something fascinating about quantum training that most people never realize. The training often looks like the opposite of what you want. If you're asking for financial abundance, you might experience periods of scarcity that force you to get creative, to develop resourcefulness, to discover inner strengths you never knew you had. If you're asking for perfect health, you might face health challenges that teach you about nutrition, stress management, the mind-body connection. This seems contradictory until you understand quantum field dynamics. The field isn't just responding to your conscious desires, it's responding to your total consciousness, including all the unconscious beliefs, fears, and limitations that would prevent you from maintaining your desired reality. So it creates experiences that bring these hidden obstacles to the surface where you can see them, understand them, and transform them. It's like having a master sculptor working on a piece of marble. To reveal the beautiful statue inside, they have to chip away everything that isn't the statue. Your training experiences are chipping away everything in your consciousness that isn't coherent with your desired reality. Every fear that gets triggered and then released, every limiting belief that gets exposed and then transformed, every old pattern that gets activated and then healed, is making you more coherent with the frequency of what you've asked for. This is why some of the most successful people have the most dramatic transformation stories. They didn't become successful despite their challenges. They became successful because of how their challenges trained them. The bankruptcy that taught them about money management, the rejection that taught them about persistence, the failure that taught them about innovation, the betrayal that taught them about discernment. Each experience was quantum training, perfectly designed to develop the exact qualities they would need not just to achieve success, but to maintain it, to use it wisely, to handle the responsibility that comes with it. And the more dramatic the success they were being prepared for, the more intensive the training had to be. So when you look at your current situation, whatever challenges you're facing, whatever struggles you're experiencing, I want you to ask yourself a different question. Instead of, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this training me for? Instead of, what did I do wrong? Ask, what qualities is this developing in me? Instead of, why won't the universe give me what I want? Ask, how is the universe preparing me to handle what I've asked for? This shift in perspective is more than just positive thinking. It's quantum alignment. When you recognize your experiences as training rather than punishment, you align with the field's intention for your growth. You become a cooperative participant in your own evolution. And when you're cooperating with the quantum field instead of fighting it, manifestation happens at light speed. But here's something even deeper about quantum training that will blow your mind. The training isn't just preparing you for your desired reality. It's actually creating it. Every time you successfully navigate a challenge, every time you maintain your worth in a difficult situation, every time you choose growth over comfort, you're not just getting ready for your quantum leap, you're making it. Because in the quantum field, there's no separation between preparation and manifestation. They're the same process. Every moment you embody the qualities of the person who has what you want, you become more coherent with that reality. Every time you respond to a situation the way your future self would respond, you collapse the wave function in favor of that timeline. This is why the training often intensifies right before major breakthroughs. It's not that the universe is making things harder. It's that you're getting closer to your quantum leap, and the final calibrations are the most precise, the most important, the most transformative. The last levels of training are always the most challenging because they're preparing you for the highest levels of your potential. Think about it this way. If you're training to lift 100 pounds, the difference between lifting 95 pounds and 100 pounds might be the hardest 5 pounds in the entire process. But those last 5 pounds are what make all the difference. They're what separate someone who can almost do it from someone who can actually do it. The final stages of quantum training work the same way. They're preparing you not just to reach your goal, but to surpass it, to maintain it, to use it as a foundation for even greater achievements. Where in your life right now can you see training instead of punishment? What situations are you resisting that might actually be preparing you for something incredible? What challenges are you facing that could be developing exactly the qualities you need for your next level? Because here's what I've discovered after working with thousands of people who've made quantum leaps in their wealth and success. The ones who break through fastest are the ones who stop trying to avoid their training and start embracing it. They develop what I call quantum curiosity. Instead of asking, how do I get out of this situation? They ask, what is this situation trying to teach me? Instead of, how do I make this stop? They ask, how do I extract maximum value from this experience? This quantum curiosity completely changes your relationship with challenge. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and start being a student of your evolution. And when you're a student, when you're genuinely curious about what you're learning, the lessons come faster, clearer, and with less resistance. Let me tell you about Sarah, one of my clients who perfectly embodies this principle. She came to me frustrated because she'd been trying to manifest a successful coaching business for 3 years. She'd taken every course, tried every technique, followed every guru's advice. But instead of success, she kept attracting clients who didn't value her work, who haggled over prices, who canceled sessions, who demanded refunds. She was convinced the universe was punishing her for wanting to help people and make money doing it. But when we looked at her situation through the lens of quantum training, everything shifted. Those difficult clients weren't punishment. They were training her to recognize red flags, to set stronger boundaries, to value her own expertise, to communicate her worth clearly. Each challenging interaction was developing her discernment, her confidence, her ability to stand in her power, even when others questioned her value. The clients who haggled were training her to hold firm on her prices. The ones who canceled were teaching her to require payment up front. The ones who demanded refunds were showing her the importance of clear contracts and managing expectations. Every single frustrating experience was quantum training, preparing her nervous system and her energy field to handle high-value clients who would pay premium prices without question. Once Sarah recognized this, once she shifted into quantum curiosity, her entire business transformed within 6 months. She started attracting clients who paid her premium rates gladly, who respected her time and expertise, who got incredible results and referred others. But here's the key point. She didn't become a different person. She became the person the training had been preparing her to be all along. This is the paradox of quantum training. You're not trying to become someone else. You're being trained to become more fully yourself. The challenges, the setbacks, the difficult experiences are stripping away everything that isn't authentically you, everything that isn't aligned with your true power, everything that's keeping you small. Think about a diamond. It starts as carbon, subjected to incredible pressure and heat deep in the earth. That pressure isn't destroying the carbon. It's transforming it into something infinitely more valuable, more beautiful, more powerful. Your challenges work the same way. They're not breaking you down. They're pressurizing you into the diamond version of yourself. But here's where quantum mechanics reveals something even more profound about this process. In quantum physics, there's a principle called superposition. It means that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed or measured. Your potential realities work the same way. Right now, you exist in superposition. There's the version of you that stays stuck in current circumstances, and there's the version of you that breaks through to millions, and there are infinite variations between those extremes. Every challenge you face, every piece of training you receive, is collapsing that superposition in favor of your highest potential. Each time you respond to difficulty with growth instead of victimhood, with curiosity instead of resistance, with empowerment instead of blame, you're strengthening the probability wave of your breakthrough reality. This is why your mindset during challenges is so crucial. It's not just about staying positive. It's about quantum mechanics. Your consciousness is literally determining which version of reality becomes actual. When you interpret experiences as training, you strengthen the timeline where that training leads to mastery. When you interpret them as punishment, you strengthen the timeline where you remain stuck. But let's go deeper into the science of why this training is necessary, because understanding the mechanism makes it easier to embrace the process. Your nervous system is essentially a biological quantum computer. It's constantly processing information, making predictions about reality, and generating responses based on past programming. If your current programming says, money is hard to come by, or I don't deserve wealth, or rich people are greedy, then your nervous system will generate responses that keep you consistent with those beliefs. The training experiences you're receiving are reprogramming that biological computer. Every time you successfully navigate a financial challenge, you're installing new neural pathways that say, I can handle money situations. Every time you maintain your worth in the face of resistance, you're strengthening the neural networks associated with self-value. Every time you make a decision based on long-term vision instead of short-term fear, you're training your nervous system to operate from abundance consciousness. instead of scarcity consciousness. This reprogramming doesn't happen overnight. Neural pathways that have been reinforced for years or decades don't change because you read a book or watch a video. They change through repeated experience, through consistent new input, through what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity. Your training experiences are providing that consistent new input, creating the neuroplasticity required for quantum transformation. And here's something fascinating that most people don't realize. The intensity of your training is proportional to the size of your vision. If you're asking for a modest improvement in your finances, your training might be relatively gentle. But if you're asking to become a millionaire, if you're asking to completely transform your relationship with money, if you're asking to build generational wealth, then your training is going to be proportionally more intensive. This isn't because the universe is harder on people with bigger dreams. It's because bigger dreams require bigger transformations. The neural rewiring required to go from middle-class consciousness to millionaire consciousness is massive. The energy field calibration needed to maintain millions requires incredible coherence. The personal development necessary to handle that level of responsibility and opportunity is profound. So if your training feels intense, if your challenges seem overwhelming, if your growth process feels accelerated and sometimes chaotic, congratulations. You're being prepared for something extraordinary. The universe doesn't waste energy on intensive training unless the destination warrants it. Let me share another example that illustrates this beautifully. I worked with a man named David who had been asking for financial freedom for over a decade. He was a talented software developer, but he kept getting laid off from corporate jobs. He'd find a position, excel at it for a while, then the company would downsize or restructure, and he'd be out of work again. This happened 7 times in 10 years. David was convinced he was cursed, that he was being punished for some unknown reason. He felt like a failure, like he was destined to struggle financially forever. But when we analyzed his situation from a quantum training perspective, a completely different picture emerged. Each layoff had taught him something crucial about the tech industry, about market trends, about the instability of traditional employment. Each period of unemployment had forced him to develop new skills, to network more effectively, to become more resourceful. Each job had exposed him to different aspects of software development, different management styles, different corporate cultures. Without realizing it, David had been receiving a comprehensive education in technology, business, and entrepreneurship. He had skills that spanned multiple industries, relationships throughout the tech community, and a deep understanding of what companies needed and what they were doing wrong. He had everything required to start his own consulting firm, except the confidence to recognize his own value. The training wasn't keeping him from success. It was preparing him for massive success. But he couldn't see it because he was focused on the apparent failures instead of the accumulated wisdom. Once we shifted his perspective, once he recognized the training for what it was, he launched his consulting business within 3 months. Within 2 years, he was making more than he'd ever made in corporate jobs, with complete freedom and flexibility. But here's the crucial point. David couldn't have built that successful business after his first layoff, or his second, or even his 5th. He needed all 7 experiences to develop the complete skill set, the comprehensive understanding, the network of relationships, and most importantly, the unshakable confidence that comes from surviving and thriving through multiple challenges. This is quantum timing in action. The universe doesn't just train you for success. It trains you until you're ready for success, until you can handle it, until you can maintain it, until you can use it to serve something greater than yourself. And sometimes that training takes longer than your ego would prefer, but it always takes exactly as long as your soul requires. Now, let's talk about one of the most challenging aspects of quantum training, something I call the final exam phenomenon. Right before major breakthroughs, right before quantum leaps, the training often intensifies dramatically. You'll face your biggest challenges, your deepest fears, your most persistent limiting beliefs all at once. It's like the universe is giving you a final exam to make sure you're really ready for what's coming. This phenomenon confuses a lot of people. They think they're doing something wrong, that they've lost their alignment, that manifestation has stopped working. They don't realize they're actually closer to their breakthrough than they've ever been. The final exam isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're about to graduate. Think about it logically. If you're about to step into a reality with millions of dollars, with complete financial freedom, with the ability to impact thousands or millions of people, don't you want to make sure you're absolutely ready? Don't you want to know that you can handle pressure, that you won't crumble under stress, that you can make good decisions even when everything seems chaotic. The final exam tests all of these things. It brings up every doubt, every fear, every limiting belief that could sabotage your success. But here's the beautiful part. By the time you reach the final exam, you have all the tools, all the training, all the inner resources you need to pass it. The universe never gives you a test you're not prepared for. I've seen this pattern over and over again. Someone will be working on manifesting their dream business, and right before it takes off, they'll face their biggest financial challenge yet. Someone will be on the verge of a major relationship breakthrough, and suddenly all their abandonment issues will surface at once. Someone will be about to step into their purpose, and every self-doubt they've ever had will seem to activate simultaneously. The people who understand quantum training recognize these experiences for what they are. They don't panic. They don't assume they've done something wrong. They lean in. They apply everything they've learned. They demonstrate to themselves and to the universe that they're ready for the next level. And here's something profound that happens during these final exams. You discover capabilities you didn't know you had. You find strength you didn't know existed. You access wisdom you didn't realize you developed. The training has been building these qualities in you gradually, but the final exam is where you get to see the full extent of your transformation. It's like a martial artist who's been training for years finally getting to demonstrate their skills in a real situation. All those hours of practice, all those repetitive exercises, all that seemingly boring preparation suddenly comes together in a moment of fluid, powerful, effortless mastery. Your quantum training works the same way. But let's address something that might be coming up for you right now. You might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually apply this? How do I shift from seeing my challenges as punishment to seeing them as training? How do I embrace experiences that feel genuinely difficult or painful? First, understand that this shift doesn't mean you have to like your challenges or pretend they don't hurt. Quantum training isn't about toxic positivity or spiritual bypassing. It's about expanding your perspective to include the growth and preparation that's happening alongside the difficulty. You can acknowledge that something is hard and simultaneously recognize that it's training you. You can feel frustrated with a situation and still be curious about what it's teaching you. You can want circumstances to change while appreciating the qualities those circumstances are developing in you. The key is to start asking different questions. When you face a challenge, instead of immediately asking, "Why me?" or "How do I get out of this?" try asking, "What is this developing in me?" or "How is this preparing me for my next level?" or "What would someone who has what I want learn from this situation?" These questions shift your consciousness from victim mode to student mode, from resistance to receptivity, from contraction to expansion. And in that expanded state, you can actually extract the value from your experiences much more quickly, which means the training can accelerate and the challenges can resolve faster. Another powerful practice is what I call quantum reframing. Take any current challenge you're facing and write down 3 ways it could be training you for your desired reality. For example, if you're dealing with financial stress, it could be training you to be more resourceful, to value money more consciously, and to develop unshakable faith in your ability to create abundance. If you're navigating a difficult relationship, it could be training you to communicate more clearly, to maintain stronger boundaries, and to love yourself more completely. This isn't about convincing yourself that bad things are actually good. It's about recognizing the multidimensional nature of experience, the way that growth and challenge are often inseparable, the way that the universe can use any situation to develop the qualities you need for your highest potential. What's your relationship with challenge right now? When difficulties arise, what's your first instinct? Do you contract or expand? Do you resist or investigate? Do you assume something's wrong, or do you get curious about what's being developed? Because here's what I've discovered about people who master quantum training. They develop what I call embodied trust. Not just intellectual understanding that challenges are growth opportunities, but cellular, nervous system level trust that the universe is always working in their favor, even when it doesn't look that way on the surface. This embodied trust changes everything. When you trust at the cellular level that your experiences are training rather than punishment, your nervous system stops going into fight or flight mode every time something challenging happens. Instead of contracting and resisting, you stay open and curious. Instead of your energy field becoming chaotic and incoherent, you maintain coherence even in difficult situations. And here's the quantum mechanics of why this matters so much. When your nervous system is in fight or flight, When you're contracted and resistant, you're broadcasting a frequency of fear, lack, and victimhood into the quantum field. The field responds to that frequency by creating more experiences that match it. More challenges, more setbacks, more evidence that life is hard and unfair. But when you maintain coherence during challenges, when you stay curious and open, even when things are difficult, you're broadcasting a completely different frequency. You're broadcasting mastery, growth, and empowerment. The field responds to that frequency by accelerating your training, by bringing you more advanced lessons, by moving you more quickly toward your breakthrough. This is why some people seem to move through challenges gracefully while others get stuck in patterns that repeat for years. It's not that some people have easier lives, it's that they've learned to maintain coherence with their desired reality, even when their current circumstances don't match that reality yet. Let me tell you about Maria, a client who perfectly demonstrates this principle. She was building a real estate investment business, asking to create millions in property value. But for 2 years, every deal she tried to close fell through at the last minute. Financing would fall through, inspections would reveal major problems, sellers would change their minds. She was starting to believe that real estate wasn't for her, that she was being blocked from success. But when we examined what was actually happening, we discovered something fascinating. Each failed deal was teaching her something crucial about due diligence, about market analysis, about negotiation, about financing options. She was getting an incredibly comprehensive education in real estate, but she was so focused on the failures that she wasn't recognizing the education. More importantly, each setback was training her nervous system to handle disappointment without collapsing, to maintain vision even when circumstances looked discouraging, to keep taking action even when results weren't immediate. She was developing what successful investors call emotional resilience, the ability to make decisions based on logic and long-term strategy rather than fear and short-term emotions. Once Maria recognized this training for what it was, once she developed embodied trust in the process, everything shifted. She stopped taking the setbacks personally. She started extracting lessons more consciously. She maintained her vision and her energy even when deals didn't work out. And within 6 months, she closed 3 major deals that generated more profit than all her previous attempts combined. But here's the key insight. Those successful deals weren't just lucky breaks. They were the natural result of all the training she'd received. She had the knowledge to spot truly good opportunities, the negotiation skills to structure favorable terms, the emotional resilience to handle complex transactions, and the energy signature of someone who expected success rather than feared failure. This is how quantum training works. It's not preparing you for one specific outcome. It's preparing you to be the kind of person who naturally attracts and creates the outcomes you desire. It's developing your consciousness, your skills, your energy field, and your nervous system to be coherent with the reality you've requested. Now, let's talk about something that might be the most important aspect of quantum training, something I call identity calibration. Your identity, your sense of who you are at the deepest level, is like a thermostat for your reality. If your identity says, "I'm someone who struggles with money," then no matter what techniques you use, no matter how hard you work, your reality will keep returning to that identity setting. Most people try to change their circumstances while keeping the same identity. They want millionaire results with middle-class identity. They want abundant outcomes with scarcity-based self-concept. But quantum mechanics doesn't work that way. Your external reality is always a reflection of your internal identity. To change the reflection, you have to change what's being reflected. This is why quantum training often feels like identity crisis. The experiences you're having are literally dismantling your old identity and constructing a new one. The person who can handle millions is fundamentally different from the person who struggles to pay bills. Not better or worse, but different. Different beliefs, different habits, different responses to pressure, different relationship with money, different level of self-worth. The training is facilitating this identity transformation. Every challenge that forces you to act from higher self-worth is upgrading your identity. Every situation that requires you to think bigger is expanding your self-concept. Every experience that demands more courage, more vision, more leadership is evolving who you are at the core level. But identity transformation can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. Your ego, your sense of self, is attached to the familiar identity, even if it's limiting. There's a part of you that would rather be consistently small than inconsistently great. There's a part of you that finds comfort in familiar struggles rather than embracing unfamiliar possibilities. This is why people often sabotage themselves right before breakthroughs. Their external circumstances are aligning with their desires, but their internal identity hasn't caught up yet, so they unconsciously create situations that bring them back to the familiar identity level. They spend unexpected money, they make poor decisions, they create drama that justifies returning to old patterns. Quantum training helps prevent this sabotage by gradually upgrading your identity in alignment with your desired reality. Instead of trying to make a sudden leap from one identity to another, the training provides experiences that let you practice being your upgraded self in progressively challenging situations. Think about it like learning to drive. You don't start on the highway in rush hour traffic. You start in an empty parking lot, then quiet neighborhood streets, then busier roads, then highways during off-peak times, and eventually you can handle any driving situation. Your identity as a driver develops gradually through progressive experiences. Wealth consciousness works the same way. You start by successfully handling small amounts of money, then larger amounts, then significant amounts, then substantial amounts. Each level of success trains your identity to be comfortable with the next level. Each challenge at one level prepares you for the responsibilities of the next level. But here's something crucial about identity calibration that most people miss. Your new identity isn't just about having more money or achieving external success. It's about becoming the kind of person who can use wealth consciously, responsibly, and in service of something greater than yourself. The universe isn't just training you to get rich. It's training you to be rich in a way that serves your highest purpose and contributes to the highest good. This is why the training often includes lessons about service, about leadership, about using your gifts to help others. Because true wealth, quantum wealth, is never just about personal accumulation. It's about becoming a conduit for abundance that flows to you and through you to benefit the world. This service component of wealth consciousness is often the final piece of training that people need before their major breakthrough. They've developed the skills, the confidence, the identity, but they haven't yet connected their financial success to their deeper purpose. Once that connection is made, once they understand how their wealth can serve something greater than themselves, the floodgates open. I've seen this pattern countless times. Someone will be struggling to create the income they desire, working hard but hitting invisible barriers. Then they discover how their skills, their passion, their unique gifts can solve problems for others, can contribute to causes they care about, can make a meaningful difference in the world. Suddenly, money starts flowing not because they're trying to get it, but because they're focused on giving value. This shift from getting to giving, from accumulation to contribution, from self-focus to service focus, is often the final calibration in quantum training. And it makes perfect sense from an energy perspective. When you're focused on getting, your energy is contracted, grasping, needy. When you're focused on giving, on serving, on contributing, your energy is expanded, generous, abundant. The quantum field responds to that abundant energy by creating abundant circumstances. So as you look at your current training, ask yourself this question: how might your challenges be preparing you not just to have more, but to give more? How might your struggles be developing qualities that will allow you to serve others who face similar challenges? How might your journey be preparing you to be a leader, a teacher, a guide for others who are walking similar paths? This perspective transforms everything about how you experience your training. Instead of feeling like you're suffering for no reason, you start to see how your experiences are developing you into someone who can help others avoid or navigate similar struggles. Instead of feeling isolated in your challenges, you start to understand how your growth contributes to the collective evolution of consciousness. And here's something beautiful that happens when you embrace this service aspect of your training. The challenges become easier to bear because they have meaning beyond your personal growth. The setbacks become less frustrating because you can see how they're developing wisdom you can share with others. The entire journey becomes less about personal achievement and more about becoming someone who can lift others up. This is quantum training at its highest level, not just preparing you for personal success, but preparing you to be a catalyst for others' success. Not just calibrating you for individual abundance, but training you to be a conduit for collective abundance. Not just developing your capacity to receive, but expanding your ability to give. Where in your life can you see the service dimension of your training? What struggles have you overcome that could help others facing similar challenges? What skills have you developed through difficulty that could benefit people in your community? What wisdom have you gained through your journey that the world needs to hear? Because here's the ultimate truth about quantum training. You're not being trained just for yourself. You're being trained to be part of the solution to humanity's challenges around money, success, and abundance. Every person who breaks through limiting beliefs about wealth, who learns to create abundance consciously, who uses their success to serve others, is helping to shift the collective consciousness around these topics. Your training matters not just for your personal breakthrough, but for the breakthrough of everyone who will be inspired by your example, helped by your success, or served by your contributions. The quantum field is preparing you to be part of a new paradigm of conscious wealth creation, where success and service are inseparable, where abundance flows to those who use it wisely, where money becomes a tool for positive transformation rather than just personal accumulation. This is why your training has been so thorough, so challenging, so comprehensive. You're not just being prepared for ordinary success. You're being prepared for extraordinary impact. You're being calibrated not just for personal abundance, but for becoming a force for abundance in the world. What would change about how you approach your current challenges if you knew they were preparing you for this level of impact and service? Because when you truly understand that your training is preparing you for service at this level, something profound shifts in your relationship with the entire process. You stop asking, when will this end? And start asking, what else do I need to learn? You stop trying to rush through the lessons and start trying to extract maximum value from each experience. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances and start seeing yourself as a student in the most advanced university in existence. This shift in perspective activates what I call quantum acceleration. When you're aligned with the purpose of your training, when you're cooperating with the field's intention for your growth, when you understand that your development serves something greater than yourself, the entire process speeds up exponentially. Lessons that might have taken months to learn happen in weeks. Patterns that might have repeated for years resolve in months. Breakthroughs that seemed impossible suddenly become inevitable. I want to share with you one of the most powerful realizations I've had about quantum training, something that completely changed how I work with clients and how I understand my own journey. Every single person who achieves extraordinary success, who creates massive wealth, who builds something that truly matters, goes through what appears to be more training than average people, not because they're being punished more, but because they're being prepared for more. Think about the most successful entrepreneurs, the most impactful leaders, the most influential creators you know. Almost universally, they have stories of incredible challenges, devastating failures, moments when everything seemed impossible, but they also have something else in common. They learned to see those experiences as preparation rather than persecution. They developed the ability to extract wisdom from difficulty, to find opportunity in obstacles, to use setbacks as setups for comebacks. This isn't just inspirational storytelling. This is quantum mechanics in action. These individuals learned to maintain coherence with their vision even when their circumstances were incoherent with that vision. They learned to broadcast the frequency of their desired reality even when their current reality looked nothing like what they wanted. They learned to embody the identity of their future self even while living in the conditions of their current self. And here's what's fascinating about this process. The more challenging the training, the more extraordinary the eventual success. Not because suffering leads to success, but because extraordinary success requires extraordinary development of consciousness, character, and capability. The universe doesn't waste intensive training on people who are destined for ordinary outcomes. So when you look at the intensity of your own training, when you consider the depth of the challenges you've faced, when you reflect on the breadth of the lessons you've learned, you're actually looking at evidence of your extraordinary potential. The field doesn't invest this much energy in developing someone unless that someone is meant for something significant. This is why I always tell my clients to be grateful for difficult training, not because difficulty is inherently good, but because intensive training indicates extraordinary destination. The universe is revealing its confidence in your potential through the comprehensiveness of your preparation. It's showing you through the depth of your development process that you're being prepared for something remarkable. But here's the final piece of quantum training that most people never recognize, something I call integration mastery. It's not enough to learn individual lessons from individual challenges. True mastery comes from integrating all of your training into a coherent understanding of who you've become and what you're capable of creating. Most people accumulate wisdom from their experiences but never step back to see the complete picture of their development. They focus on individual trees but never see the forest. They recognize specific skills they've developed but miss the comprehensive transformation they've undergone. They acknowledge particular strengths they've gained but don't realize the extraordinary person they've become through their journey. Integration mastery is about connecting all the dots, seeing how every experience has contributed to your development, recognizing the complete skill set you've acquired, understanding the full scope of your transformation. It's about realizing that you're no longer the person who started this journey, that you now have capabilities you didn't have before, that you've been fundamentally calibrated for a different level of reality. This integration is often the final step before major breakthroughs happen. People spend years accumulating training, developing skills, growing through challenges, but they don't fully claim their transformation until they step back and recognize the totality of their development. Once they do, once they integrate all their learning into a coherent understanding of their new capabilities, their external reality shifts rapidly to match their internal transformation. Think about your own journey over the past few years. What skills have you developed that you didn't have before? What strengths have you discovered that you didn't know existed? What wisdom have you gained that you couldn't have imagined acquiring? What challenges have you survived that once seemed impossible to overcome? What capabilities do you now possess that your former self would have found incredible? When you really look at the comprehensive nature of your development, when you acknowledge the full scope of your growth, when you recognize the extraordinary person you've become through your training, you realize something profound. You're not the same person who started asking for transformation. You're not operating from the same consciousness that created your previous limitations. You're not broadcasting the same frequency that generated your old reality. You've been quantum trained. You've been systematically prepared for a completely different level of existence. You've been calibrated for success, developed for abundance, prepared for impact. The training is complete. The preparation is finished. The only question remaining is whether you're ready to claim your transformation and step into the reality you've been trained to handle. What would happen if you fully acknowledged the extraordinary person you've become through your quantum training journey? Because here's the truth that changes everything. You are not the same person who began this journey. You are not operating from the same consciousness that created your previous limitations. You are not broadcasting the same frequency that generated your old reality. You have been quantum trained, systematically prepared, and fundamentally calibrated for a completely different level of existence. Every challenge you thought was holding you back was actually moving you forward. Every setback you believed was evidence of failure was actually evidence of preparation. Every moment you felt like you were being punished was actually a moment you were being trained to handle the extraordinary life you've been asking for. The person reading these words right now has capabilities that your former self couldn't have imagined. You have wisdom that can only come from experience. You have strength that can only be forged through challenge. You have clarity that can only emerge from confusion. You have faith that can only be developed through testing. You have become someone who can handle millions not because you've learned techniques, but because you've been transformed at the cellular, nervous system, identity level. Your training is complete. The preparation phase is over. The calibration process has finished. You are no longer becoming ready. You are ready. The question isn't whether you can handle your breakthrough. The question is whether you're willing to claim it. So stop waiting for more training. Stop looking for more preparation. Stop believing you need more development before you're worthy of your dreams. The universe has already invested everything necessary in your transformation. You have already become the person who can create, receive, and maintain the reality you've been asking for. Your quantum training has prepared you not just for personal success, but for extraordinary impact. Not just for individual abundance, but for becoming a catalyst for collective transformation. Not just for having more, but for being more and giving more than you ever thought possible. The field is ready. Your consciousness is calibrated. Your nervous system is trained. Your identity is upgraded. Your purpose is clear. Everything is in alignment for your quantum leap. If this resonates with you, if you feel that spark of recognition, if something inside you is saying, yes, this is my time, then hit that subscribe button because you're part of a community of people who understand that they're not victims of their circumstances. They're graduates of quantum training. Drop one word in the comments that captures how you feel about recognizing your challenges as training rather than punishment. And remember, you haven't been going through all of this for nothing. You've been going through all of this for everything. Your breakthrough isn't coming. Your breakthrough is here. You've been quantum trained, and now it's time to claim the reality you've been prepared to handle.